Welcome back to the channel, everyone. So I have gotten so many requests recently about pricing work and people asking for advice about pricing their work. So I thought I would make a quick video, more conversation style, not scripted, might be a mistake. But I thought I would just kind of run through some things that I have to go through when pricing my work with the hopes that maybe some of that translates to what you're looking at doing with your work. There are going to be multiple variables that are going to, I guess, make a difference in where you are and who you're working with and what type of work you're doing. So it's going back to, I guess, some core principles of pricing work and what we all have to look at, and that's kind of what I'll go through here. There's no right or wrong answer or like one size fits all type of thing. So if you want to hear my take on it, stay tuned. All right, so as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, there's really no one price that sets, I guess, a precedent over all pricing. So you're gonna have to kind of look at your variables and what you're doing and apply those to your pricing structure. And I think at the end of the day, what we're all looking to do is get the maximum amount that we can get for a job and not give away anything, as in, underbid ourselves or offer something less than what we're worth and less than what people are expecting to pay. So that's, you're trying to hit that, that, I guess, level where everyone is happy with what's going on and you can make a living doing this as a job. And that's another kind of point here too. I mean, some of these, I'm sure some of y'all are hobbyists or kind of weekend warriors with this, and then others might be full-time photographers that are actually making a living doing this type of work. So just another variable in what we're looking at here. But one thing that affects us all when it comes to pricing our work is the work, and that is our product. So the best thing you can do is hone your craft, get your work to the highest possible level to where people really want you to do the work. And that's where desire kind of equals greater demand, which then allows you to charge a higher price for your work. So the first thing to focus on is your product, which is the work itself. Build your portfolio, do the marketing, just get yourself really dialed in to where you can deliver the highest quality product possible. And that kind of takes us to, I guess, different realms of work. So if I'm going to share my own kind of, I guess, philosophy or style or the way I like to try to work, and that's working maybe less but having bigger budget jobs, and so where I can do a handful of jobs per month and meet my overhead needs. But the flip side of that is when you don't land those jobs, or maybe some jobs go away and then you're left kind of scrambling to fill that void. So there's two sides to each coin, where on the other end of the spectrum are your photographers that will be working, I guess, lower paid jobs, but they're working a lot more, which adds up by the end of the month. And I'm using the month as kind of our time frame here. So either way can work, and you can make more money doing one way or the other. It's just based off of what it is you like to do and what kind of keeps you in the game, keeps you motivated, and where you're not getting burned out, which is, I guess, something that we all have to take a look at, because I think we all get into this realm of photography because we enjoy it, and as soon as it becomes work, it kind of loses that I guess joy, and your motivation, your creativity, and stuff like that kind of goes to the wayside. So we got to kind of strike that balance of being creative and then also working enough to where we can still be happy with what we're doing, and in my case, making a living doing what I'm doing. So once you've got your product, your work at a certain level, and it's a type of thing too. I mean, let me go back and just say that I'm continually striving to try to get better. And I think that's something that's important for all of us, trying to expand my creativity so I have more things to offer my clients. Also, you might look at like doing video as well as photo. The more ways you can answer yes to questions when people are looking at hiring you, the better chance you have for landing that job. And that kind of brings me to, I guess, the second part, and that's when you're approached for, or when I'm approached for work. And how do I handle that process? Well, the first thing I always do is ask if they have a budget in mind. And sometimes you'll get that right away, and that's just the best way for me that I've found to kind of see where I am with a potential client. They could come in way low on something, and then that tells me that I'm not the right person for that job, or their budget could be healthy, and then that's where I get super motivated to bid for that job. So that's a quick way to find out where they're coming from with certain work. Sometimes, probably most of the time, you're not going to get a direct figure, and then that's where you can follow up with other questions to try to figure out what that range is and where you're going to land with certain work. And then with that information in hand, and even if you don't have that information, what you need to do is this goes back to running a business. You need to know what your overhead costs are and what it's going to take to keep yourself in business over a certain amount of time. So you need to kind of divide your overhead by the time it takes to do these jobs, and then that way you will know what you need to charge for certain work to make sure that it's viable for your business. And things that I don't think everyone thinks about that you need to include in that, and that's, if you have a studio like this here, obviously all this goes into the cost of work, cost of doing business, but also don't forget your gear. I mean, these cameras, these lights, none of this stuff is inexpensive, and you need to tally that into the cost of doing business. So make sure you include that into your number, and that'll help you be more accurate as far as knowing what you need to charge these clients. Even at the higher levels, I mean, I have a line item that includes my camera, my lights, all that type of stuff, and I rent it out per job, and that way I can stick that percentage of income into a pool to where when I need to upgrade my gear, gear wears out, things get broken, that type of thing. So that way I have a little slush fund there set aside to where I can afford to get the next camera, the next lens, the next light, all that kind of good stuff. And another, maybe even the most important component of work is the time it's going to take to do a certain job. So you need to factor in time. That is probably the most important number that you're going to kind of throw into this equation and figure out, time into dollars and how that relates to covering your overhead costs, plus hopefully a little bit more, so you're actually putting some money in the bank so you can make somewhat of a nice living doing this type of work. Now that you've figured out what it costs you to be in business, then you kind of need to relate that to what you're going to charge people to do certain types of work based off of time and everything else. So where do we get those numbers? And that's going to be, where you're located, the demographics, the type of jobs, and then that's going to relate to hopefully what they tell you their budgets are. And there are so many other resources out there now where you can research pricing based off the type of work you're going to be doing. So look at the potential job that you're doing, and reach out to people that do that similar type of work, maybe online in Facebook groups. Another great thing are workshops that you can go to, and make sure on the front end that you're going to a workshop where the business end of things is being covered in that workshop. And those are invaluable. And we also have to, and this is something you need to include into your cost of doing business, is investing in yourself with education, tutorials, going to these workshops, photo shows, and then on the less expensive end of that is just joining these groups like on Facebook and that type of thing, and then asking questions to your peers in those groups. And make sure that what they're telling you is relative to what it is you're doing. So if you're working for a high school, make sure the person that you're corresponding with is also doing that type of work. And then you need to kind of figure out, maybe where they're located, demographics and stuff like that are going to be different for certain parts of the country than other parts where maybe the cost of living is higher than the other places. So people are more used to spending a certain amount of dollars for a certain service. And maybe in another part of the country, they're used to spending less than that. And so that's kind of where you need to have some awareness about where you are and what people are used to paying and that type of thing. So, and then that goes back to your product, and the better your product is, hopefully the more you can get paid to do that product, because you have increased the demand for what you do, and that's kind of where you're setting yourself apart from the competition that's out there. And this day and age, it is, when I talk about competition, it is very fluid out there. The barrier to entry in this business has never been lower, and it's only getting lower. And so there are a lot more photographers in this pool that people can choose from, and that's where we go back to your product. Your product's got to stand out, and I think to be the most successful that you can be, it's about having that product and then being smart about what you're doing on the business end of things. So when you're talking about pricing your work too, it inevitably comes up about, would you lower your rate for certain work, or do some certain work for free possibly? Those are use cases, I guess, where you really have to look at what it is you're going to be doing and how that could potentially benefit you down the line. When it comes to free work, it's got I can't remember the last time I did really anything for free that wasn't a completely crazy situation, and usually as low as I will personally go, and if this is me here sharing everything, is for expenses. And I guess the last time I might have done that was during the COVID year, when there was really nothing else going on, and I looked at a project that was basically covering my expenses to do the project. But then on the creative end of it, I had a lot of creative control. It was going to be a very visible project, and like I said, I really didn't have anything else going on, so I jumped at that opportunity, and it's worked out from there because it's led to a lot of other work. And those are the main variables I look at when it comes to adjusting my rate for a job. It's whether it can benefit me down the road, and how much creative control that I will have during a job, so I can kind of direct this job to where I want it to be creatively, and maybe do some things kind of outside of the box, and have access to talent that I wouldn't normally have access to. And in this realm of lowering your rates to get access or land a job, one thing I will not do is undercut another photographer. So if I am being approached by a certain client and they already work with the photographer or have worked with a photographer, and they're not asking me to do anything different, and it's not based off the quality of my work in comparison to who they work with, and they want me to come in maybe at a lower rate, that is something I will not do. I will never do something like, where I just find it immoral where you come in and undercut another photographer, and that is not doing anything to further our profession. And it starts this trend where we're racing to the bottom, all of us. If we're all undercutting each other, it does nothing to serve anyone else. And the short-term gain for that is not worth it. And that's a business practice that please stay away from. Now, if it's more of a comparison of work, like quality of work or different styles, that type of thing, that's all fair game. And the advertising world, usually when a brand or an agency is sourcing photographers, there will be at least probably 3 photographers that are presented in a presentation, and that's going to be based off of price and your style and that type of thing. And so that's all fair game. And let me also bring into part of this whole negotiation process. You need to be trying to get a read on your client, on who's approaching you about the work. And when I say that, there's some folks out there that just don't appreciate quality of work, and they're just worried about the bottom line. And that's fine and all. It's, sometimes that bottom line is right there where you need it to be, but just know in your mind that you can do twice as good of a job than the other photographer, and you might make an impression on whoever's hiring you, but more than likely, when the next job comes around, they're going to be fishing for price. And so those are the types of clients you just need to be wary of. Whereas the flip side of that, if someone really appreciates your style, really appreciates kind of what you bring to a job, those are the clients that you really need to build relationships with, and treat them as well as you possibly can, because those are the folks that will continue to hire you, and you can get that repeat business, which is really priceless when it comes to this type of work. And in those negotiations too, if you're getting an off feeling, if they've got a if they're presenting a very low budget, you kind of getting the feeling that this is all about the numbers. It is not the worst thing in the world to say no to some of this work. And like I said, you can put yourself out there, and it's really kind of a dead end street at the end of the day. And if, in my own experience, if I know that I'm not going to have much creative control, I know that this is just about getting a check, and I know there's no security down the line with a certain client, and the rate is already at a basement level. Those are jobs that I can live with myself walking away from and saying no. And so that's kind of where you need to appreciate the other clients on the other end of that spectrum. So if you land a handful of those clients, treat them as I know I'm kind of repeating myself, but that is super, super important in sustaining yourself in this line of work. So to boil it all down and not make this an extremely long video, the main thing you need to worry about is your product, and making that as high a quality as possible. You need to kind of have a self-awareness about where you are demographically, who you're working for, that type of thing. Then you need to educate yourself both with your overhead, which you need to charge for a job based on the time it's going to take you to do that type of work. And in the negotiating process, you need to, the first thing I do, like I said, I ask to find out if they have a budget in mind. That saves you so much time on the front end. If they don't, try to figure it out, jockey around a little bit, but then you can fall back to what your numbers are and present what your estimate would be for that type of work. And then during that process of negotiating and everything, try to get a feel for who this is that's approaching you to do this work, and base your decisions off of that feeling. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, just the pros and cons of different types of approaches from people and different types of clients. So I know this is kind of general, there's no really direct answer, but I hope this maybe, leads you in a direction to pricing your work. Use the resources out there that are available. And I do have a Patreon where I have consulted some folks on there that they can reach me in the DMs on there and give me more specifics about certain work, and we can kind of talk through some things and I can help them out. So if you're interested in that, feel free to click that Patreon link down there and come check me out. Also have a lot of other videos with behind the scenes type work on there, where you can kind of see what goes on behind the scenes, some of these photo shoots, along with what I have here on the YouTube channel. But otherwise, if you feel like this video is worthy, please hit that thumbs up. If you want to see more content like this in the future, hit that subscribe button down there and the little bell so YouTube will let you know when I'm back on here. If you want to continue this discussion, drop some comments down below as well. And in the meantime, you can find me on Instagram and I guess it's not Twitter anymore, and X at quantzphoto, as well as at ProLight Mods. Y'all stay safe and healthy out there, and I will see y'all once again in the next one.